Welcome to Mornings with Megan. I'm here to give you the information, tools, and resources you need to make the best decisions for your body and your perimenopause. Good morning and welcome back to Mornings with Megan. I'm Megan Piffner, certified nutrition specialist and perimenopause nutrition expert. This is part 2 of our 3-part series on sexual health and perimenopause. If you have not listened to part 1 yet, I want you to go back. We covered a lot of ground: the hormonal picture, what declining progesterone does to anxiety and cortisol, what is happening in vaginal tissue, the cultural weight women carry around sex, and the very important question of whether you believe you deserve pleasure. Please start there. It sets everything up for today. Because today we are getting practical. We are talking about what you can actually do. And I want to open with something I said at the end of part 1, and I'm going to keep saying throughout the series. You are not broken. This is not your fault. And most of this is addressable. Let's go. The first place I want to start is not with your partner. It's with you. I want to talk about solo sex as a health practice and as a tool for body literacy. I know that might feel like a strange place to open, but stay with me. Here is the reality. It is very hard to communicate to another person what you want if you do not know yourself. I learned this the hard way. I spent years assuming my partner should just magically know. I had absorbed from every movie and TV show I had ever watched that good sex was spontaneous and intuitive, and if you had to talk about it, something was wrong. Wrong. Solo sex is how you learn what is happening in your body right now. Not what worked 5 years ago, not what you think should work, what actually works for you today in this body, in this stage of life. And here is why that matters during perimenopause specifically. Your body is changing. What felt good at 35 may not be what feels good at 44. The stimulation you needed before may be different now. Your arousal patterns may have shifted. Things that used to happen quickly may take longer. Things that never interested you before may suddenly be interesting. Your body is not broken. It is just different. And paying attention to that difference is genuinely useful data. There is also a diagnostic piece here worth naming. If you have no interest in solo sex and no interest in partner sex, that is one picture. If you are interested in solo sex but not partner sex, that is a completely different picture, and it tells you something important. The issue is likely relational or contextual, not physiological. Your body is capable of desire. The environment around partner sex is what needs attention. That information matters when you're trying to figure out where to put your energy. Let's talk about the relational environment, because this is where I see the biggest gap for most women I work with, and it's also where the most immediate change is possible. I want to introduce you to the concept that I first heard from Dr. Sally Greenwald, and the moment I heard it, I thought, yes. Every person who has ever managed a household and also tried to have a sex life needs to hear this word: chore play. Let me paint you a picture. Think about those sexy calendars, the ones marketed to penis owners: scantily clad bodies, wet t-shirts, very suggestive fruit eating. Now think about the sexy calendars marketed to vulva owners: scantily clad bodies as well, but they are vacuuming shirtless, washing the dishes naked, folding laundry in a wet t-shirt. You see the difference? Where the person who is managing the brunt of the household, the kids, the lunches, the laundry, the doctor's appointments, their own parents' needs, the car that needs servicing, the mental load of tracking it all. When their partner wants to be intimate and the to-do list is still running in the background, desire is not just going to appear. The body knows that work is not done. The nervous system is still in logistics mode. And a person who is utterly exhausted and does not feel supported is not the person who can just drop into pleasure. This is not about not loving your partner. This is about the nervous system needing safety and support before it can access desire. Those are two separate things. Now let's imagine a different scenario. A vulva owner with a partner who notices what needs to be done and is just doing it without being asked, who sees that she is stretched thin this week and shows up differently. When lubrication starts to shift, instead of becoming a silent source of stress, there's a conversation. Should we slow down? Use something. Check in about where you are. There are regular conversations about energy levels, stress, desire, not just when something is wrong, but as an ongoing practice of paying attention to each other. That environment produces different outcomes, not because the hormones are different, but because the nervous system feels different, supported, seen, safe enough to be present. Let's talk about something that causes a lot of unnecessary shame around scheduling sex or being intentional about intimacy. The idea that good sex is spontaneous. It is not. It never was. Think back to the beginning of a relationship. Those early days feel electric, right? Like things were just happening naturally. But were they really spontaneous? You put that person in your calendar. You planned to see them. You thought about what you were going to wear. You shaved your legs or whatever your version of that is. You showed up having thought about this person, having anticipated seeing them, having made yourself available in every sense of the word. You called it a date or dinner or a movie. You did not necessarily say out loud, and then we will have sex, but you probably thought about it. You anticipated it. You made the possibility of sex, well, possible. You did not go out in your laundry day underwear. That was not spontaneous. That was planned intimacy with the planning kept quiet. And here's the other version of that spontaneous sex. You go to a bar, a party, a wedding. You end up connecting with someone. Things happen. Things feel spontaneous. But were you really just going about your day with zero awareness? Or were you open to it? Maybe even fantasizing about it a little, traveling prepared for the possibility. You wore something that made you feel good. You were in a social headspace. You showed up ready. Spontaneous sex is mostly a myth that we have been sold by romantic comedies. What we are really talking about is readiness, the mental and physical state of being open to and anticipating intimacy. The difference between early relationship sex and long term relationship sex in midlife is not that one was spontaneous and the other is scheduled. It is that the readiness used to happen automatically because everything was new and exciting. Now it has to be created more deliberately because life is full and bandwidth is thin and your nervous system needs more help getting there. Scheduling sex is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you are taking your relationship and your pleasures seriously enough to protect the time for them. When you were dating, you protected the time. You just called it something else. So, if a 0 to 10 rating scale and a calendar invite is what gets you both there, that's not clinical, that's intentional. And intentional is actually more intimate than accidental. The conversation around it, are you overwhelmed right now? Do you need support? How is your sleep? Where is your stress? That is a new version of the week of anticipation. That is your foreplay. And it looks different than it did at 28, and that's okay. Now let's talk about some of the practical physical tools because this is where a lot of women have questions and not enough information. Lubrication first. As we talked about in part one, declining estrogen changes vaginal tissue. Less natural lubrication is one of the first things many women have noticed. And here is what I want to say clearly. If you're noticing a shift, you don't have to wait until sex is uncomfortable to address it. The earlier you have this conversation with yourself and your partner, the better. The first conversation is with your partner. More foreplay, more time, more attention to what your body actually needs to warm up before everything else happens. That is not a limitation. That's just information about how your body works right now, and working with it rather than around it changes the experience entirely. Second conversation is about lubrication. And I want to spend a few minutes here because not all lubes are created equal, and some of the most popular ones on the market are actually making things worse. This is where I want to bring in a concept of osmolarity. I know that sounds very clinical, but bear with me for a second because Dr. Sally Greenwald taught me this and I have never forgotten it. Once you understand it, you will never look at a bottle of KY jelly the same way. Osmolarity is essentially a measure of how concentrated a solution is, specifically in terms of how it interacts with water. Your vaginal tissue has its own natural osmolarity, its own water balance. When you put something inside the vagina, you want the product to have a similar osmolarity to your tissue. When the osmolarities match, everyone keeps their own water. Nobody is losing anything. But when you put something with a high osmolarity into vagina, something much more concentrated than your tissue, it pulls water out of the vaginal walls. Your tissue is literally being dehydrated by the product that is supposed to be helping it. Products like KY jelly and Astroglide can have osmolarity levels that are many times higher than what is safe for vaginal tissue. They are popular, they're in every drugstore, and they're working against you. So, what do you use instead? Two options that I recommend. If you want a water based lube, Good Clean Love Almost Naked has an osmolarity right in the ideal range, around 280 to 300. It's clean, it's gentle, and it does what it's supposed to do without the tissue damage. If you want a silicone based option, Uber Lube is excellent. And here is the thing about silicone. Osmolarity is a water based measurement, and silicone contains no water at all. So the question of osmolarity does not apply. Uber Lube does not interact with your tissue's water balance in any way. It just reduces your friction without pulling anything from your tissue. It lasts longer than water based options, and it does not get sticky, and it only has 4 ingredients. And it's compatible with latex condoms. So if that is relevant to your situation, you do not have to choose between protection and lube that actually works for your body. I will link both in the show notes. One caveat worth knowing, silicone lube is not compatible with silicone toys. So if that's relevant for you, Good Clean Love should be your go-to. Which brings me to toys. Let's just say that out loud. As your body changes, the stimulation that used to work reliably may need to be revisited. This is completely normal. It is information, not a problem. And one of the most useful things that solo sex gives you is a space to figure out what your body is responding to now. Toys can be a genuinely useful part of this exploration. Solo, to learn what you like, and with a partner as an addition to what is already happening. The key, as with everything that we are talking about today, is communication. Introducing anything new with the Introducing anything new with honest conversations takes the awkwardness out of it and turns it into something that you're doing together rather than something that might feel like a commentary on what is happening before. There is no age limit on this conversation. There is no stage of life where this stops being relevant. And if the idea of it feels uncomfortable, that is probably the cultural baggage we talked about in part one showing up. Notice it and then consider whether it's actually serving you. I want to close this section with something that I think is genuinely freeing if you can let it in. Sex in your 40s does not have to look like sex in your 20s. It probably shouldn't. Your body is different. Your life is different. Your relationship, if you are in one, is different. What you need to feel present and safe and turned on is different. That's not a loss. That's information. Sometimes more frequent sex that is good enough is more useful than rare sex that tries to be perfect. Sometimes the reverse is true. Sometimes the most important thing is just making time for it at all, in whatever form that takes. Sometimes the priority is learning what you want right now in this body, which is its own project worth taking seriously. The cultural script says midlife is when your sex life winds down, that women past their fertile years are past their peak. I want you to hear me clearly. That is not biology. That is a story. Biology says that your body is changing and needs different things. The story says that means that it is over. Those are not the same thing. You are allowed to rewrite the story. You are allowed to decide that sex looks different for you in this chapter of life based on what actually works for you, not based on what you did in 28 and what you think you are supposed to be doing or what anyone else's relationship looked like from the outside. What do you want? What serves you? What serves your body, your relationship, your life right now? Those are the questions that matter. Before I close, I want to give you a sense of what is worth addressing on your own versus what deserves a conversation with your healthcare provider. Talk to yourself and to your partner first. Decreased lubrication, changes in arousal time, shifts in what stimulation you respond to, low desire that feels situational or relational. These are conversations to have with yourself through a solo sex and body awareness, and then with your partner. Talk to your doctor. Persistent vaginal dryness or discomfort that does not improve with lube, pain during sex, recurrent UTIs, a significant decrease in libido that does not seem to track with your stress or relationship factors, and anything that is affecting your quality of life regularly. The last one is important. If something is affecting your quality of life, it is worth raising that with your provider. You do not need to have a crisis to deserve support. You do not need to be in pain to bring it up. If it matters to you, it counts. And if your provider dismisses you, if you are told that this is just aging, just stress, just something to accept, that is a signal to find a provider who is current on the research, because the research is clear. There are good tools for this. You deserve a doctor who knows about them and will have a conversation with you. So that is part two. We covered solo sex as body literacy, chore play, and what it actually takes to create an environment where desire can show up, the myth of spontaneous sex and why scheduling intimacy is actually more intimate than leaving it to chance, the osmolarity piece and why your lube choices matter more than most people think, toys, and permission to completely redefine what sex looks like for you in this chapter of life. Next week is part three, and it's one of my favorites. We're going deep on vaginal estrogen, what it is, what it does, why the warning label that scared everyone off is for decades has now been removed, and why the FDA is actively working to make it available without a prescription. We're also going to talk about what it does beyond sex for UTI prevention, tissue health, and long-term comfort. And I'm going to share some client stories that I think will feel very familiar. I'll see you next week. Can you do me a favor? If this was helpful, share it with one person who might need to hear it today. Our bodies didn't come with a user manual, and this perimenopause thing can feel confusing and lonely. But you're not alone, you're not crazy, and you're definitely not broken. And maybe someone in your life needs that reminder too. Let's spread the word and be kind to each other and ourselves. Now the legal bit. I'm a nutritionist, but I'm not your nutritionist. This podcast is for information and education only. No client relationship was formed. Always seek medical advice when necessary. I'll see you next Wednesday morning.